bit late.
Okay. With that, I think we'll go ahead and call a meeting to order. You received a packet in the mail with the consent agenda, all the agenda items, the minutes from the last meeting, and financial statements. I hope everyone had a chance to receive them and get a look at them. I might mention that they changed some computer stuff over at the office, and I did receive some emails, but it went to junk, simply because I think it was, I don't know why. It never went to junk before on me, but I didn't think to look there until I called Lana yesterday, and then when I called her yesterday, it was in my junk. So if you didn't receive something, you might look to make sure that you didn't receive that. So with that said, the consent agenda, any questions, any changes to the agenda? Lana, any changes to the agenda? No?
No, sir.
Okay. I will make a motion. Yeah, make a motion to approve.
Second.
Stewart? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next on the agenda, we have public comments. I would like to welcome everybody. Bob, Steve, Mr. Sam, welcome. Bob, would you care to make any comments this morning?
No, just gonna sit here and listen.
All righty. Thank you for attending this morning. With that, Mr. President, we'll have your comments.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I did send out, I hope you got that with your board packet. I sent out the list of meetings from the previous month, so you would have that. Did everybody see that?
We did, and
Okay.
and you were a very busy person. That was just I wanted the board to see, so we got new board members to see how busy you actually are, how things go, and how that is. We probably won't have you do that on a continuous basis, but I wanted, because we are at the stage that we are, I wanted everybody to see the meetings you attend, the people you meet with, the people that call in for different things, and I thank you for putting that together.
Absolutely, and certainly, anytime you have questions about those, you're welcome to call. As you noticed, I'm fairly vague in some of those calendared items. However, they are named by individual on my actual calendar, so if you're interested and want to know what those discussions are about, you're always welcome to stop by or give me a call. I'm happy to fill you in. All right, Project 322, just as a reminder, the 3 indicates the month that it came in, 22 is the year, and Montrose is the project name that Mr. Cottrell assigned to this project, because nobody else gets to assign names for our prospects. So, and again, as a reminder on that, we do give them a prospect name when they appear that they will require quite a bit of coordination and discussion with our partners. Just gives us an opportunity to call them by a name instead of a number, which helps everybody to remember what project we're talking about and what the discussion might be about. So Project Montrose was an industrial, international industrial business, and then they did visit us. It was a lot of activity. We were able to do a kind of a community greeting with them, did breakfast with them. That was very well attended, and they were very impressed with everybody coming. Good morning, Larry. With everybody coming out, especially early in the morning. They thought that was really cool that people would do that. And then we did a whirlwind of agricultural tours. I saw a whole lot of the western half of the state in a couple-day period. So it was very nice. They were very impressed with the region and with the folks. We could not have been happier with the dairies and their reception, as well as the feed yards. Jeff George was just incredible. out at Finney County Feeders, did a great tour with us, let him drive the feed truck. I mean, it was really a good experience. So very nice to get to showcase Kansas ag to those folks. Excuse me. Project 222 Niagara. This is a large utility user and is requiring quite a bit of coordination on that side. Things are moving along well with that, and we're hopeful that we'll get them out here for a site visit within the next couple of months. And then we have Department of Commerce Innovation. We've not heard any response back from the Department of Commerce as to the status of that one. Housing Project 521, this is a west side housing development in the envelope between Garden City and Holcomb. As you know, we've been awaiting whether or not we could find a wastewater solution for out there. We did apply for helped the county to apply for a base grant for that. You're going to hear all about base grants from Shannon, so we'll let him cover that for us. But suffice it to say, we don't have a solution for wastewater yet. We'll continue to work with the county on that. Housing Project 321, this is the USDA funded project that's located out on North 3rd Street. We did do a groundbreaking out there in just a little bit of wind, right, David?
Right.
Just a little bit, just a breeze, that's all.
That's what weights on her.
Senator Moran was really pleased that he could be here and be a part of that. Obviously, with his work with USDA, it was something for him to be able to see some of those funds being utilized in one of his, I'm sure, favorite communities, but certainly in his favorite state. So that was a great event, and I'm sorry about the wind. That afternoon, it was gorgeous. We could have just waited, right? I should also mention there's been quite a bit of commentary on social media about that project. It is touted as an affordable housing project. We've talked for a long time that affordable really isn't a very good word to use when describing housing, because obviously that depends on who you are as to whether or not it's affordable. But with this housing project, the USDA program that was utilized is one that instead of capping the amount of money that the tenants can make, it instead caps the price for rent and utilities as a percentage of their total income. So the folks who live there have to work in agriculture, and their rent and utilities are capped at a percentage of their total income. So they can earn whatever the market will pay for the job they're doing. Their rent and utility is just capped. So this is one of the few federal programs that actually works for us on housing, simply because our median income has gone up so significantly in the past decade that most of our workers don't qualify for typical federal housing programs. Any questions on that?
Is there a timeline on the third phase?
So the first phase is underway. Second phase is already through the USDA process, and they're hopeful that they can move straight from phase 1 into phase 2 with really just a seamless transition. And then third phase, they've already been invited to apply. With USDA, there's these steps that you have to take, and you have to be invited to apply, and then you start that process. So right now, it's already planned, it's already laid out. It will just be a matter of going through that USDA process again for that final.
It will get funded, you think?
We think so, and the developer certainly thinks so.
So what is the time frame for that process, for the application to USDA and getting it approved and going through that entire process?
It always depends. We would say actually phase 1 took quite a while. It went through the what we would expect a federal funding program to take, a pretty significant amount of time. However, the pandemic kind of sped up the federal housing programs, created even more impetus for them to get the process done, also cut back on staffing. So there was a bit of a balancing act there. But phase 2 moved quickly. He was actually able to apply for it quicker than he ordinarily would have been able to. So to answer your question, dunno. It really just depends on what is happening in each of those federal agencies. But in this case, like I said, phase 1 took a pretty significant amount of time. Phase 2 went really rapidly, And we're hopeful that because of the proven concept and the fact that we have no doubt those units will fill up immediately, that will help us as we move through phase 3.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions on that? Those are all rental units. There are no owner-occupied units in there. Excuse me. Housing Project 820, this is Lost River, and infrastructure is underway on that site. We've also had some discussions with some apartment developers about doing if you remember, this is a very diverse housing development. The way it's designed, it goes from single family all the way back to various levels of density on the back portion of it. And we have met with an apartment developer who's considering doing the apartments. Those wouldn't have been built until probably 6-7 years down the road as that development went along. This would speed that and allow the project basically to grow together if we're able to make that work. Project Daytona, this is a mixed-use development that we've been working with a local developer, and we did not have a zoning classification that allowed for mixed-use development outside of the downtown core district. That got changed. At the Planning Commission meeting on April 21st, they did approve adding a zoning classification that would allow us to do mixed use, meaning we would have commercial on the main floor with residential above that. And so that piece now will go to the City Commission and be approved, and then we'll be able to utilize that zoning classification in other mixed-use developments across the community.
So that's through the planning process already with the, the housing planning and all that?
Neighborhood Development Services.
Okay.
Yep, they created the mixed-use zoning classification,
Okay.
got it through Planning
All right.
Commission, and now it'll go to City
All
Commission.
right, thank you.
You're welcome. Western Kansas Corridor, we are awaiting county action on this project. The tax increment finance district is done, and we're just waiting on a development agreement from the county. For the infrastructure side, the developer's attorneys have provided a draft of a tax increment financing development agreement, which is actually a 3-party agreement. The city is the only one who can actually establish a TIF district. Counties can't do that. So in order for this to work, the city, the county, and the developer will be entered into a 3-party agreement on how the tax increment finance district is managed. But there will be a separate development agreement just between the county and the developer, again, for infrastructure and such. So we are awaiting the county to get that development agreement done, as well as their comments back. The site plan's been out for review now for 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Typically, they're allowed 10 days to respond, but we don't have any written comments back from the county's engineering firm yet. So we'll continue to work through that with the developer. They were actually hoping to have bids out for the infrastructure the first part of April, and obviously we have missed that deadline. So,
Is there anything we can do to help visit with our county?
I believe your staff is doing
Thing
everything
they can do.
imaginable to continue to move that process forward.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Quinby Wastewater, again, I'll let Shannon talk a little bit about that, and Steve talk a little bit about that if he wants to. I won't steal Steve's thunder. I'll let him talk about certified sites. And again, with meetings, we have been very, very busy. I did want to call your attention. Was asked to do a podcast with Chris Floyd from First National Bank, and I hadn't done a podcast before, but we actually recorded it virtually, and then he goes and puts it out on. They have a podcast channel that they put it out on, and I have been amazed at the number of people who have reached out and said they listened. It's over an hour long, but people are excited and listen to it. So that's neat, and it's out on social media. So he just wanted to ask questions about how we look to the entire region when we talk about development, and how Finney County Garden City maybe does it differently than some of the other communities across the state. So it was very cool. It was a very neat opportunity. I was glad to be asked. more meetings. Good news is that the future fellows, the High School Graduation Requirements Task Force, and the Spark Task Force, all of those duties will end, or at least slow significantly within the next 6 weeks. So yay. I will be they have been very rewarding opportunities, but they have been a lot of additional work to serve on those. May schedule, I will be in person for the Graduation Requirements Task Force over the next month. Those meetings will be in person in Topeka, so I will be out a few days for that. The Washington, D.C. Western Kansas delegation trip is scheduled for May 7th through May 10th, which is a Saturday through a Tuesday. And future fellows, I'll be in Topeka for the final presentation of that group, May 17th through the 19th. Any questions on any of that?
Who's going with you to Washington? Just yourself and Shannon? Well,
Yes, Shannon will be
did
going
with the
as
city,
mayor.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm the only one going from the FCEDC office in the city, I believe. Just has 6 or 7 folks going.
Okay.
So it's a little lighter crowd than normal, but I would anticipate we'll have good discussions. Certainly, we have plenty to discuss
Sure.
with our federal delegation. And I think that about covers it. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Lana? Thank you, Lana. Well, as always, you've been a very busy person,
Thank you.
taking care of business and taking names, I guess.
Happy to be busy.
Next, we have Mr. Cottrell, Special Projects Director. Projects report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, after no activity from KDOC last month, the first week of April, we got 4 requests for information from them. We didn't respond to any of them, so one of them only wanted like 2.5 million square feet, and, 12 gigawatts, and big, massive things. Project Niagara, there have been several Zoom meetings related to the utilities for that prospect, as Lana indicated. It's quite an intensive user, but certainly doable, we think. Project Montrose, the work done, and that's my pronunciation. Lana and I disagree, so. Worked on site drawings for that prospectus. Due to some other conflicts, I wasn't able to attend any of the site visit when the folks were here from out of town. But, a little disappointed on the base grant failure for the Quinby sewer system. I thought we had pared down a $26 million project down to about 13. It was certainly a doable thing and would have opened up the majority of that area for industrial and residential, which is, the residential was certainly needed. So we'll have to see where we get to go from here on that one. We'll have to discuss that with the county and developers. See where monies might be available. Hopefully there'll be some other federal opportunities, maybe some state opportunities in the next year or so. On Western Kansas corridor, that's been a hot spot. Seemed like every other day there's someone else walks in the door, makes a phone call, needs 5 to 10 acres or more. So did several prospect drawings for that area. The second edition plat, which was a single lot, was approved by the Planning Commission. Same meeting they did the zoning classification for the mixed use. That's the lot on the north side of the entrance road off of 83. So that's when we've got a letter of interest for that particular potential sale. Lana said the legal counsel is working on developer's agreement for the first edition. Traffic study has been completed and submitted to KDOT. Should take, well, actually it takes longer than it should, but sometime in the next 4 to 6 weeks, I think we'll hear back from KDOT. Lots of discussions about the existing sewer lift station over across the highway and things like that. It's kind of in a holding pattern while some of that gets worked out. The developer actually submitted a base grant application for some spec buildings. Shannon will get into more detail on base grants here shortly. On the residential side, assisted a developer with an existing RHID navigating through the final approvals to where the infrastructure is 99% done, substantially completed, and now working with them to try and get approval for the building construction to start on, I think they've got 9 lots up on 9th Street, north of Gertrude Walk. A couple other large tracts that are currently out in the county that have been, one of them is contemplated for potential annexation into the city. I worked on 3 different layouts for that one. Got one up north on 83 out in the county. I worked on 3 layouts for that one as well. In Lost River, the sewer line is finally compacted, backfilled, everything. And I think they're creating a mountain of dirt on the north end of that project. I think they're cutting the street out before they start working on the water line. So, Hunter's Glen, after the groundbreaking, the equipment got moved around and parked, and the scraper finally moved out of the parking position yesterday. I noticed on my way into the office, but I haven't been by to see if they actually did anything or just moved it 50 feet. Met with the apartment developers, as Lana had indicated, up in Lost River. Holcomb's neighborhood revitalization program, I think has been tweaked enough. Has it made it through council yet?
It did, and I think, did you get something last month or 2 weeks ago? We went over it.
Yeah.
And we just had one change, I think.
Yeah, I made those, so
Okay.
those are back with Robin. So hopefully they'll get that approved at your next council meeting, or their next council meeting. Added another track to the potential RHID sites out in the county, so there's up to 13 now, and that's all been submitted, draft ordinance or resolutions for getting the process started. It goes through Commerce as well as a policy document that kind of mirrors what the way the cities runs, but is tweaked just enough to individualize it for the county process. Any questions?
I'm curious, we had a major holdup in the western Kansas corridor development with those other tracks that are in the county. Do we anticipate some holdups on those projects as well, or do you think they'll?
That's hard to say.
Okay.
You know, the county's never done an RHID.
Okay.
And, you know, they kind of learned a little bit of that process and procedure with the TIF for Western Kansas corridor. The RHID process is kind of similar. So hopefully that going through the TIF, it won't be quite totally foreign to them, but the big thing out in the county is gonna be utilities. I don't know that we'll see city densities in some of those tracks. They may be more of
Not
2
large.
acre-ish size, so they can do an individual well and septic, so they're
Mhm.
not having to extend or create sewer districts and things like that. That's the big unknown, is how those develop, and some of them are immediately adjacent to either Holcomb or Garden City, but because of utility constraints in Garden City, we require the Quinby sewer system in for the stuff on the west side. So it's the great unknown.
Okay.
As a reminder, the county commission actually asked us to pursue creating the opportunity for them to do rural housing incentive districts. But to your point, they also asked us to pursue development projects for the county. So hopefully we'll be able to
Push them through.
get things done in a timely fashion, but certainly we'll need to stay on top of it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Steve before he sits down? No questions, Steve. Thank you. You can sit down. Next, we have the Communications Director, Mr. Scott Ost.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This past month, we had 15,000 visits to the website, which is probably double what we normally do, so that was good. As you can see, it was from last week, and that was 2 different stories about Hunter's Glen and then Napoli's moving to town. That bumped things up quite a bit. We also had some other school stories that made the rounds and were pretty good for us. Facebook, the Greater Garden City Facebook page had nearly 1,000 views, as did the journal page. Our post reach on Greater Garden City was over 9,000 this month, and 4,000 posts were engaged with, clicked on, whatever. The journal had got more people logged onto their site, so they had quite a bit more post reach than we did, people seeing this stuff. And we're pretty close to the same engagement with the journal. Top posts, of course, were Hunter's Glen, Napoli's, our own Lana Duvall being one of the top 50 Kansans you should know. Wallet Hub ranked Garden City number 2, best place in Kansas to start a business. And Shannon's annual April Fool's post on the journal did really well. 20th annual There's Nothing to Do festival. So, then down there you can see the Twitter. We had 41 tweets. About 5,500 people viewed those tweets, and led to 675 people visiting our profile and adding a few more followers each time, which is great. And I also put down here on the bottom, Greater Garden City, I've also started a presence on Instagram and Pinterest, but I don't have analytics available right now, so I'm still trying to figure out what to measure, I guess, on those platforms. Any questions on that stuff?
You all understand the impressions, right? We're tweeting. It's very effective. Whatever it is, it's very effective.
Very interesting, yeah.
We're just glad Scott knows what he's doing.
Thank you, Scott. Mr. Shannon, Director of Analytics.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think on the schedule for me, and the first thing is to talk about strategic projects or strategic consulting. Finishing up, I should by the end of today finish up the major part that I need to get done with the water report for the city, which Jamie will then get, and get to generate those reports. So that's that water, if you live in the city and you get a water bill from the city, that's that annual report that tells you about your current usage, your neighborhoods, and all that stuff. So that data processing should be done today. And then the other major project that I'm working on is the one that we talked about that's very similar, but for the county and it's well users. That's a brand new project, so we're going through and determining what you do if a well pumps 0 gallons for a year. Is it an active well if it pumps? So all that kind of stuff. So we're doing that. We've been having weekly meetings with Groundwater Management District and in the city and all that kind of stuff. So that's what's going on there. I'm going to probably give you part 1 of a 2-part series on the base grant because we don't have the whole picture yet because we know how things were awarded. We don't know how things were submitted. So the big question is, well, nobody, well, we'll see in a second, and you've already seen, we didn't get any grants in Finney County. Is that because nobody submitted grants? We know we submitted grants, but what about Kearney County and other Scott County? Did they submit grants? So with this report, we can see who was awarded, but we don't know see who applied. So I only get half of it, so part 1. So get ready next month when some of our state guys get a little bit more information from this group to see what's going on here. So the first thing that we should mention that we see, this is the Kansas Commerce's website about the base grant, and like a starving artist, they might not have gave us money, but they gave us exposure. The top middle image for this webpage is the State Theater here. So probably not very many people notice that until we go look to see if we got anything, and we got our picture on there. So that's good.
We got some.
We got something. We got some exposure. We got some exposure. We can use that to maybe get some future grants. We can write this as a reference in other grants that we got exposure in this one. Okay, so, sorry, that's being overly pessimistic. Okay, so the next one, this is you've probably seen this already circulating around. I did do another little bit of analysis on here. So this is just looking at the base grant awards, and I did put in there what the purpose of the base grant was, just so everybody who's looking at this knows what the stated purpose was, and that's is decided to support infrastructure development to address economic development opportunities statewide with the goal of expanding the state's base of business and residents. So this was intended to be a statewide program. I did divide up the state into thirds, and when I did, it's really easy to map and data stuff. It's really easy to divide Kansas into thirds on the west into central because there's almost as soon as you get a third in mile-wise, we have lines. You do when you're doing it between the central and the eastern side, you kind of have to, you really want to split some of those counties in half, but I didn't. I put everybody together kind of with their cluster, so you can, Wichita and everybody, I try to keep in the central region. So with this program, there was $99 million of grants awarded. So we could say, well, if we have $99 million for a program in Kansas, there's really 2 ways we would expect that to be broken down. Out here in western Kansas, we really expect 3 ways to be broken down. So one way that they could do is by, let's just say, every county gets even amount. And so that's roughly about every county gets $1 million. 105 counties, $99 million of thing. If we were to do that, the expected awards per county for western Kansas should have been about $22 million. And then for central Kansas, about $35 million. Eastern Kansas, about $35 million. That's if every county would have got an equal distribution. Another way that's expected, if we're talking, what's another way we could divide up this money? We'll just break it down by population in western, central, eastern. And so if we just did it by population, we'd expect to get about $6 million of base grant dollars. Central Kansas, about $30 million, and eastern Kansas, about $32 million. And then we see what reality happened. Number of projects, 2, 13, and 20. And then the awards. And so actually, if you kind of look at how these were awarded, Central Kansas was awarded about that $1 million per county that we would expected. Every county gets about the same amount of money. Not every county got it, but overall, that Central Kansas, they did that. So maybe the state used that kind of formula for Central Kansas. For Eastern Kansas, they're really close to the distribution per population. So if we'd expect it to be evenly distributed by the population, they have the majority, 2/3 of the population is in Eastern Kansas. They got about 2/3 of that money there. And then I said there's probably 3 ways we expect things to be divided up in Kansas. It's either by county, by population, or by region, and I didn't put that in there, but usually we expect $0, and that's pretty close to what we got there. So we can definitely see there's 3 different ways that we could expect to divide it, and kind of each region got its own way, either by county, by population, or by what part of the state you live in. So that's what we see here. Again, the one missing piece to divide this up a little bit more is, well, what was the proportion of requested grants for funded grants? I mean, maybe we just really had 70 times less grants requested than Central Kansas, or 120 times less grants in East Region. I mean, there was 400-ish grants out there, so there could be some sort of disparity between the number of grants from each of these different regions requests, and maybe we just really didn't have that many requests compared to everybody else. So we don't know that. We'll get some more information. We'll see a part 2 to this. The next thing I put on there, and this is the last slide, I don't like doing this as a presentation, but I think it's good for y'all to have that. That's why I actually made handouts. So you can see kind of the sorts of projects that were funded by base grants. And really, it's an interesting exercise to look through there and just see the very wide variety of projects that were funded, micro factories and signs and mixed-use developments. The $10 million mixed-use development, that Brick Ridge redevelopment is just a mixed-use development in Johnson County. So it's good to go through and just kind of see just American Royal Complex and stuff like that. I did separate it by regions. Actually, I put us in Western in there twice because I forgot to delete it off. But so we're actually overrepresented here. You can't really tell because if you look at the region, it's C's is the central, E's is Eastern, and then W's is our Western there. So any questions about where we're at so far on this? I think we already know how it all went down, so it's just kind of a post on this.
So our area representatives, do they weigh in on any of this?
Yes, I immediately reached out to our delegation and explained the situation. A request was put in the day that the base grants were awarded. A request was put in by our legislators to get a complete list of all applicants as well as the scoring matrix that was utilized, to Shannon's point, so that we could show if there was disparity in the applicant pool. We certainly wanted to know that. The only response that our legislators received was from the Department of Commerce liaison to the legislature, who said that because legislators had chosen to do a direct budget allocation to Dodge City and the proposed Hillmar cheese facility, that they really didn't consider any other Western Kansas applications, even though that was not funded through the base grant program. It was a direct budget allocation that, quite frankly, our legislators didn't know was in there until after they were told that they had passed that as part of the budget package. So we'll see. It certainly is information that we should be able to get. These are all public dollars, and so we should be able to get those records that have been requested. Certainly our legislators should be able to get those, but to date they've not received those, and that request has been made by 3 of the legislators so far.
I'd like to do a follow-up on that. If you go back to that map, if base grants in Western Kansas were ineligible because of a completely different appropriation through a different process, if you do see that location of that spot is here, if they say we're all ineligible for base grants, why is this one not ineligible as well? So it's really interesting that they would use that as a reason. Syracuse, sorry, I'll go back to here so you can hear me. So it's really interesting that that would be the reason that Syracuse or Scott City or Wichita County wasn't eligible to get a base grant if the county right next to one of them that got
Received.
their reason was there. So unless, I mean, anyway, so we'll see.
Is that Kyle?
Who knows?
Is that Kyle?
It's Mullinville.
Yeah, Mullinville.
Mhm.
But yeah, Kyle County. So that's all I have, and hopefully look forward to part 2 where we get the other half of the data and can kind of see what's going on there. In the end, it's not going to change anything. We can just kind of dice it up a different way and say, well, look at this. I'm not guessing that there's a significant difference in submittals of grants or anything like that, so.
So they give these out every year?
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
This was part of the federal dollars that came down through the American Recovery Plan Act.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, this was specifically for statewide development of infrastructure for businesses and residents.
I guess it's just
This is a
very,
one-time deal.
Unless they create a budget allocation to do these in the future, yes. Mhm.
so is this final? I mean, is this the money that will be going out to these?
Yeah, for this round, that's correct. There has been some talk about allocating some of the additional Spark Task Force dollars back to fund some of the additional applications that were submitted for the base grant. Obviously, we would certainly like to see those lists of applicants before we advocated for the idea of funding additional grants that still would not fund any in western Kansas. So it would be good to know what those other applications might be.
Be very interesting to know what applications went in from western part of the state
Mhm.
to see why and they weren't considered. I guess we just have to continue to grow our own as we have, and you do the job that you're doing to continue to make us look good and throughout the state, but we can't get any funds to help us.
And I would let you know that I had multiple contacts from across the state, both from counties as well as from legislative folks who were more than a little concerned by this. And our map, Shannon put it together when they announced the awards, and that map had made it pretty much all across the state through various emails and discussions. So when I was at the Leadership Kansas Summit in Topeka, or in Lawrence, excuse me, last week, I had several folks who
Seen it?
had also made comments about it. So
Just how unfair it is. Thank you for lobbying for Western Kansas and for Garden City. Shannon, thank you for all your work and that on this. Hopefully in the future this helps get Western Kansas recognized and get them something. So
All right, thank you.
is that it?
That's it, yeah, unless there's anything else.
Anything else for Shannon?
I'll swing over this.
Thank you. New business. I believe before you have a proposed budget for 2023 that the committee put together. Lana graciously put together all the previous year's information. You can see here that we're going to be asking for a significant increase to the county and to the city for some additional funds. Lana, would you care to make any comments on this budget before I go in and?
yeah, just those increases. In discussions with our partners, it was recommended that we haven't had a significant increase in quite some time, and they felt it prudent that based on our performance that we ask for that fairly significant increase. If you go through those budgeted line items, you'll see that the increases in expenditures are largely related to our team, to our primary goals, and ensuring that we're keeping up with salary requirements in order to keep the team that we have in place, and then some funds for special projects and those things that, again, since apparently we're not going to get much state assistance, things that we're just going to have to figure out ourselves as a county and as a region. So that's really where the increases are.
Hopefully y'all seen these in your information that was sent out to you. you had a chance to review and see if you had any comments or anything that would show cause for some.
I didn't get this.
It was, should have been in your menu, it was in your.
It was in with the
your
packet.
It was in the packet.
Yeah.
You didn't get the packet? You didn't get it either, Sam? Okay. Before you guys got
Yeah.
here, I mentioned in the meeting that we have gone through some computer upgrades and some changes to our internet, and since then, some emails that I've gotten from them that usually are there has went to junk. So you may look in your junk mail to see if there isn't possibly something there in your junk mail. You don't look at that? Okay.
Did you get it or no?
Well,
Well, I sent it to
it's right there.
both
Yeah,
of your email addresses.
Didn't get either one.
okay.
You're fired. I'll start sending a pigeon out with yours.
We'll see that you get a copy, Sam. So,
Got it right here.
there you go. You got it now. So, questions, and Sam did attend the meeting with us, so he kind of knew had an idea of what we were looking at, what we were talking about, so. Larry, I apologize for you not getting it, so. In the future, we'll make sure that everybody gets it, so. I may ask for some acknowledgement of some sort. The other thing with when I send something from my phone, it comes from my wife, because it's Susan that we have our phones through. She's listed as the person, so I don't know if you guys have seen that as well, but that's, sometimes it goes to junk mail as well, so know that that's a possibility as well. So I'm trying to make sure that everybody gets the information that you need to look at, making decisions and those types of things, so. Questions with regards to the budget?
I may be old here, but when you look at the top Finney County and all us four entities.
Partners, yeah.
Us four entities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you go to 215, 215, 215, and then 315. I'm thinking, if I go back to Holcomb, and if we would continue to raise it a little bit every year, instead of 10,000 in 1 year, that's when they're gonna complain. But if it raises a little bit at a time, because you remember back when we raised it, they were a little upset. But as the county, you went up 100,000 in 1 year. I know we need it, I know that.
Well, it's not so much about our need, it's about our performance.
Well,
The
I know
county
that.
and the city of Garden City get the lion's share of the benefit. Obviously, the city of Holcomb gets a very nice benefit from the work that we do
Yeah,
also.
that's what I'm saying, but.
Would you prefer that we add a slight increase? Oh, this is just your proposed
I would think every
budget.
year instead of one big year. That's what I'm thinking. Because we pretty well stayed there
Stagnant
last
for,
Mhm.
yeah.
And then boom. But Holcomb didn't get a raise, and neither did the
Community
the,
college, no.
college.
I might add that the community college did help with some computer equipment and some
Okay.
funding of some other things on the side that we took into consideration. Correct me if I'm wrong on
No,
that.
that's correct.
And that they gave us some significant funds for helping with employment stuff and that kind of stuff. So know that
We
they-
also have meeting space. They do in-kind meeting space with us. So
Yeah.
there's certainly more than meets the eye on their budget allocation. But if you would like to suggest a number to increase Holcomb by, we're happy to consider that. And if that's what you opt to do, this can easily be redone and sit back up.
Maybe a couple thousand, and then next year maybe another, and more.
So like,
Because
in $2,500 increments or something to that nature, is that what
Pardon
you're,
me?
$2,500 increments to that?
I'd go maybe 1,500, 2,000, but not 2,500. That's what I would say.
Okay.
That's, going back,
No, you're fine.
they were real concerned, boom, that when you have a little bit raise.
Yeah, we did have to do quite a bit of talking when we did that increase to them when that came about. So that was, there were several meetings I believe we had to attend, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
to show cause for why we increased and did that. So I think.
And they also told them last month, be prepared, so, okay. And then we didn't get nothing.
Be prepared for an increase?
Increase, that's what I
Okay.
told them.
Okay, I
Maybe
got you.
we request more than we think we're gonna get.
That's a point, Stuart.
I don't know, what do you think?
I don't know.
I mean, would we?
See what they say.
We wanna raise it 5,000 and then hope for 2,500? And then everybody feels happy?
But they negotiated down and, well,
I think we ought to do it this way.
His request, since he's
Yeah.
already
To Ron's
primed them
Just
for
throwing that
the
out
increase.
okay.
What's the number?
If you,
32,000?
no,
How much?
2,000.
Take it to 32,000 for
Yes.
their
Oh, yes.
contribution?
Another 32, no.
And then tell him Ron said that it'd be
Yeah,
okay.
Ron said. Okay, so that the will of the board is to increase to 32,000 for the city of Holcomb's contribution?
And that's, yes, I believe that will, and that just increases the
I
amount,
can make those
Yeah.
adjustments.
okay? Any other questions on the increases that we put in there for workforce development, community project and marketing? Those are all pretty much salary-based compensation for the work that's done for everything. So we did increase meals. We are sponsoring quite a few meetings and those types of things, so we increased meals from 7 to 10,000. Marketing, we increased to 15,000. We were at 5,000 this previous year, so that's a significant increase. But we are actually reaching out to different folks, and as you know, the inflation is increasing and things are costing more than what they used to, so it's a natural thing for us to increase. So, questions?
I have a comment, I guess, that since we have a county commissioner here, what do you think the reaction is gonna be, Bob, to this request?
Not no, but hell no.
Like, nothing increase? No increase? I mean, I hate to put you on the spot, but.
Well, I'm obviously only one vote, but I do hear these other people, and I think their whole attitude is that all of this just happens magically, and if anything, they would like to find, and it's actually in our board goals, finding an alternate way to fund economic development. And so that'll be we've ignored the goals for 2 years, 3 years. We haven't looked at them, but we're gonna start looking at them next Monday. And they'll be looking at every way, so I believe Lana's gonna share that during the retreat. It'll be a battle, but I think there are some ways to present it rather than that increase, that the staff does so many things that are actually county responsibility, that the county doesn't have anybody to do that job, that perhaps you stay somewhere in between that number and where we are today and say, all right, we'll do this, but we'll do it at our hourly rate. And you can pay us that way so that you're not giving us the money out front. But that's one person's opinion. But there's a tremendous caution because the real estate values went up basically 10% across the board in all the valuations. and everybody's sitting back saying, okay, how much are you gonna lower the mill levy? And with the real world of last year's inflation and this year's inflation, we're gonna need all of that 10% and more. So it's going to be a challenging budget time. So I think perception, you've gotta make sure that whatever you deliver and package it needs to make sense and be able to justify. And you need to be really careful how much money is on the quote-unquote bottom line and how you're preparing to use that. Because if there is money on the bottom line and you're asking for an increase, you need to be able to justify that.
Thank you, sir. Questions? Any questions for Lana?
On Lana and Bob, what, and the engineer, what do you think you've done for the county? How much have you worked on, like the deal out there, the Quinby? There's a lot of stuff out in the county.
Yes,
Are
there
we,
certainly
are we
is.
safe of saying that?
Can we justify, I guess, is what he's
Yeah.
asking.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, that's,
I would say even maybe more so to Holcomb in terms of all of the work done on neighborhood development, RHID, that Holcomb will be the absolute beneficiary down the road.
okay.
Not only what they always get from Finney County, but if you take all the hours that staff has spent there between Steve's time and Lana's time, and then
The entire staff. Yes.
it impacts,
Mhm.
you know, and so if you look at, there is a responsibility for economic development, and that is your quote-unquote base rate. And then you go beyond that and you say, all right, because we belong to them, we also get this service.
Mhm.
If Holcomb, as an example, wanted to be funded at 25,000, and you could say, all right, we're going to say, yep, you can have a development, let us know how you do, or you can have them come in and do the work that they have done in creating that and pay the fee like Haskell County does and the people who don't belong, quote unquote, to Finney County Economic Development. And I think that's the best way you go about it. So it's the old proverbial pay me now, pay me later, but if you want the goods, you have to pay for those services. And you can either pay a fixed rate and get it all, or you can pay for what you need. But in terms of drafting resolutions, creating the TIF, creating RHIDs, all of that was done across the street and then reviewed by the county. So there is a plus and a minus. There are things that staff has done and there's stuff that the county does. But right now, the county doesn't have an engineer and they didn't have a public works director until recently. So that kind of work was all filled by our professional staff. And then all of the work that Shannon does for all of the highway type studies, you know, all of that is for the benefit of the city and the county that we've done as a matter of course. But whenever we're doing that, we can't do what the staff is here for. So it's gonna be all about packaging because nobody wants to pay more taxes. But we gotta justify, and I think you've got a very, very good story to tell, but it has to be fact-based.
Bob, I'm going to
Thank
ask
you.
this question. If the county elects not to contribute to the efforts of this at this level, would they be, how would they feel if the city stepped up and made up the difference and asked for a additional representative from there, the city's rep, and took one away from the county, because the county currently, correct me if I'm wrong, has 3 representatives, and the city has 2. And we reversed those roles to 2 for the county and 3 for the city. What are the thought processes there?
I think you as a board can make that as part of your presentation. Say, historically, when this was created, here is the document.
Sure.
And it says it shall be Finney County
Mhm.
Economic Development. And they were the lead funding deal, and it came out this way.
Yep.
And if they're not comfortable, we know and understand, however, the other entity is, and we need to move it. I don't know that you change a name, but you certainly have the right under your organizational documents
Mhm.
to recommend that change.
Okay,
That would be something on your side of the fence.
okay. Just wanted to get a feel from you what your thought process was on that, so, okay, thank you. Any other questions for Bob? Steve?
Well, in answer to Ron's question, any project we do that gets done in Garden City, that valuation is realized by the county as well. So just because we're not doing, or Western Kansas Corridor is the first development in unincorporated areas, doesn't mean we're not working for the county.
That's right.
Improving valuation in the county is economic development, whether it happens inside the city of Garden City or inside Holcomb or in the unincorporated areas. So
Sure.
that's quite often lost in the tunnel vision that you haven't done anything for me lately. But
Oh, I'm not saying,
No.
I didn't ever say that.
Let me clarify that.
not you, it's.
All right, we're done when you're.
That just went up to 5,000.
Okay.
I agree with Steve. I think that we all need to look at this, Garden City, Holcomb, Finney County. We all need to look at this as we are in this together.
Correct.
Where we succeed, you succeed. And if one of us does not succeed, then it, effectively sort of pulls down the rest. So I think we all really need to look at this as a community and not as individual entities.
I agree. But the funding comes from the most entities the entities that most benefited from, so that we have to take that into consideration as well. So thank you for your comments.
That is true, and it all kind of goes back to what Shannon was looking at with this type of a map. And I think we just need to make sure that our metrics are correct.
Mhm.
And Shannon's really good at that, Lana's really good at that, so I think that we're able to do that very effectively.
Considering Bob's idea there, I know it'd take quite some doing to itemize some of that out just over the past year, that you could say, okay, here's a bill for 500,000 for the service we did for you.
Mhm.
If you had that with you when you presented it.
Yeah, we will be presenting this on May 5th to the fiscal committee, and then I believe at the first meeting in June to the county commissioners themselves. But certainly I can go back through, again, all of my hours are tracked and logged in my calendar, so happy to go back and create that if you feel there would be value.
And what Steve would charge on a private business
Mhm.
doing all this engineering drawings.
Yep.
I think, again, what Dave's saying, but just like what Bob saying, more of an itemization. Because if I'm reading it right, and even though I know we've struggled, we still always come underneath the budget.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So it's hard to say, well, we need more money when you manage to come underneath the budget without some itemization like that.
Well, I'm going to say, on Lana's behalf and on the staff's behalf, there have been some cuts made, some things that are done by them to make sure that we stay under budget. And I'm just going to use this as an example. Lana hasn't turned in mileage for some time. There has not been any mileage turned in for her travel and her things that she does outside the community, in the community, to the state organization, all of those types of things. There's been no mileage turned in. There's some significant amount of money there for that mileage. She's put mileage on her vehicle. You know, those things add up real quick. And we need to take those types of things into consideration at that time. So know that you know, that's something that, and I don't mean to put you on a spot like that, Lana, but
That's all right.
I think it's something that needs to be said for her efforts in getting Southwest Kansas, Garden City, Finney County recognized and the things that she does to help us, and not only her, but the staff. So know that there are things that have been done over the years. We've significantly reduced our money that we have in our funds, and you know, it was due to Bob's efforts back then, when you know, we reduced those amount of monies and used those funds for operating expenses, and now it's time to pony up and step up and try to help us keep things moving in the direction that they are. So with that said, any other questions with regards to this budget?
So maybe we ought to consider buying a company vehicle. Well,
Or maybe I just need to submit mileage reimbursements, which is what the fiscal committee suggested.
Yes.
I think, and
it'd be
Bob
cheaper
made a
for a
comment
company
about,
vehicle.
sometimes these other entities look at what's happened and they think it just happens. Well, it doesn't just happen. It's
Now,
just
look at all the meetings that she's
It's through
attended.
hard work
Yes.
by staff and
Dedication.
other people that are involved. And I think we need to remain positive on, hey, these are the things that have been accomplished that benefit not only the city, but the county also.
Mhm.
And present it in that fashion
Correct.
that, hey, you know, these things don't just happen. And they increase the valuation of the county and it works to keep the mill levies down and that sort of thing. So I think there's some real benefit that not only we did, I say we, the staff did in this past year, but also the upcoming things that are going to happen, you know, possibly 22, 23.
Sure. Makes a lot of sense.
I can also see Bob's thought on the commissioners looking at it and saying, well, you have 347,000 carryover. Why do you need an increase? I know the board out there would probably say that too.
There was
Several
a
members.
time, though, when that actual 2020 was 89,000. So those numbers can change pretty drastically in a short period of time.
And the other years have fallen off, but
Yeah.
I quit submitting mileage reimbursement in 2016 because we were down to carrying over less than $100,000 every year.
But those are things you'll have to explain when you go in.
For sure.
So with that said, looking at this budget, is there any reason that we cannot accept this with the changes to the city of Holcomb to 32 versus 30,000? And Lana does her magic with the numbers here and changes all of it and adapt that as our budget for 2023.
I move that we accept it
With those changes?
with those changes.
Okay.
One second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. I'll get that adjustment made and send it back out.
Old business, do we have any?
No, sir.
Okay. We have some client confidentiality executive session that we need to go into. Lana, 15 minutes, 20 minutes?
Yeah, we are 21 minutes away from starting the goal-setting meeting, so
Okay,
I think if we set aside 15 minutes, that would be great.
okay. And then we do have some personal information that we need to go over. So,
We can add an executive session for non-elected,
yes, please.
okay? How long would you like for that one?
Whatever amount of time we have remaining, I guess, is till,
6 minutes,
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Why don't we do 5 minutes for client confidentiality?
okay,
And then you can have 10 minutes, if that works.
that works.
All right, we will come out of the first executive session and announce that no action's been taken before you go into the second.
All right, so we need a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Larry, were you the second one? You were the second on that one, okay. You were here last night?
Yeah, he showed up late.